One sick outplay can hard carry your team, allowing you to win a game that you had no business in winning. Now, being able to consistently outplay enemy DPS through mind games, mechanic, and game sense, that could be a route to hundreds or thousands of SR, reaching new SR peaks again and again. With all that being said, let's jump into the top 8 ways that you can outplay your opponents every single game. Let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now, kicking off with the first thing on our list, you need to learn how to size up the enemy. If you can learn how to size up an enemy's ability and their specific skill set, you can learn exactly how to capitalize on this. Every time you run into an enemy, try to keep a few things in mind. How many shots are they hitting? Are they doing anything specifically smart that you should take notice of? Trying to size up your enemy is one of the best ways to understand whether or not you should force a duel with them at certain moments, or if you should try to disengage altogether. Understanding an enemy's skill level and their particular strengths and weaknesses could be the best way to make sure that you know how to treat each and every matchup, and can be the best way in order to outplay them again and again. Now, moving on to number 2, what you need to try to do is put yourself into the shoes of the enemy. Whether they're a support, a tank, or a DPS, try to understand what they're going to be trying to accomplish each and every time. If the enemy's a Doomfist, try to think about what you would be doing if you were a Doomfist. Is he going to be setting up in this perch, hiding behind this rock? Put yourself in the shoes of the enemy and try to see things from their point of view can be the best way to outplay them and shut them down. This is why again and again you see pro players and streamers check corners and pick up patterns about where the enemy is. This is because they put themselves in the shoes of the enemy. They think, if I was a Doomfist, what would I be trying to do? Oh, that's right, I'd be hiding to try to go after my Ana. They set up scenarios where they can capitalize on the information they gain by putting themselves into the shoes of the enemy, and they can really turn that into outplays that translate directly into SR because you win more and more games because of it. Now, let's move on to number 3 on our list, and this is set traps for the enemies. After you put yourself in the shoes of the enemy and you really size them up, you can set up unpredictable traps for the enemies. This means hiding and waiting for them to think that the support is alone and you're ready to pounce. This means playing a hog and playing on the flank, waiting for them to come and grab the mega. They don't know that you're waiting there for them, but you know that they're going to be coming for that mega soon. You can set up these traps with the enemies that can secure free kills, where you can really capitalize on their lack of understanding that you're there. They're not putting themselves in the shoes of you, but you're putting yourself in the shoes of them, and you're setting up traps, winning SR, and getting free picks over and over again. This is incredibly powerful to mind games enemies because honestly, you can use your teammates for bait. If you're something like a McCree, you can pretend you're going on a flank, but you're really just waiting for that Reaper or that Genji or Tracer to try to jump onto your support, and you can easily snatch up a free kill because they're not expecting you to actually be prepared for them. You can even set up traps for enemies when they walk out of spawn. This is why spawn camping can be pretty powerful because no one's expecting to get spawn killed right outside of their spawn. There's many things that you can do. Setting up traps for enemies is incredibly powerful. Now let's move on to number 4, and this is hit enemies when they are weak, when enemies don't have cooldowns, when they're low health, when they're running back to their supports. These are the perfect time to outplay your opponents because honestly, you're not giving them much chance to fight back. Trying to keep in mind enemies cooldowns, and if you know enemies cooldowns, this can make outplaying them that much better. If you know when a Reaper's gonna have Wraith again, or if a McCree doesn't have Flash for another 4 seconds, understanding these things can allow you to outplay the enemy because you know informationally that you have the advantage. You already know these things, so you can use these things to your advantage. Trying to hit them when they're weak, when they don't have their cooldowns online, when they're low health, or when they can't get peel, this is the best way to fight enemies. It's a way that you can fight an enemy when you have the leg up automatically and you don't have to take a 50-50 or even worse, a 40-60 or anything worse than that. Now, let's move on to number 5 on our list, and this is be unpredictable. So being unpredictable is something that takes time to learn, but what you have to understand is there's certain things that everyone is going to predict. At predictable spots, Doomfist is going to come on the flank on the high ground. Things are going to be a certain way, and after you play it a certain way throughout the game, there's going to be habits that build up, and the enemy are going to try to predict you. If you can do things that are completely unpredictable but still effective and powerful proactively, you can get the enemy off guard. This means maybe, oh, instead of trying to target the support for this 3rd dive, I'm actually going to target the DPS instead. He's going to be looking for me and is trying to protect his support, but I'm going to be actually hunting him instead. There's a lot of different things that you can do to be unpredictable, and that unpredictability can actually get the enemy off guard, allowing you to outplay your opponents. So this could be something like trying to retreat, but instead of actually retreating, you're really just trying to bait and go back in on the enemy. There's tons of things that you can do to be unpredictable, and it can allow you to win matchups, win individual 1v1s, or win team fights altogether if you can try to be unpredictable. Now, the next 2 tips are the most important tips in the entire video that will let you outplay enemies again and again. But before that, you really need to learn about GameLeap.com. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet here, but GameLeap.com is the #1 educational Overwatch platform. And if you want to get the leg up on your competition, definitely come check us out. I'll break it down more for you in the end of the video, but for now, Hope you enjoy. Now moving on to tip number 6, you need to learn how to punish enemy habits. So the important thing to understand here is each and every player you come across will have specific habits that they implement in each and every game. Even you yourself will have specific habits that differentiate you from each and every other player that you play with in games. Habits can only be built up through trial and error, playing in your own games through your own perspectives, and eventually specific strategies and specific ways you go about in each and every game form up. Now, the way that you use habits to your advantage is that you really need to be trying to analyze your enemies and try to figure out what their habits are. What are they doing that's specifically predictable? And what you're really trying to do is learn their habits as quickly as possible and use that to the advantage. Let me give you this example. Maybe you find an Ana that keeps trying to set up for nades onto your whole team. What you could do is specifically wait for that opportunity to flashbang her, hook her, shield her off, or do all kinds of different things. She learned this specific habit because in many of her games it worked. She would set up for a nade spot, try to nade the whole team in a risky spot but never get punished for it, and it allows her to secure giant nades onto the whole team. Over time, she developed this habitus and she enacted it in each and every game she played. Now, if you could identify that that's something that she keeps trying to do, you can make a game plan to shut that down. This means flanking around her. This means saving abilities to punish her or just waiting for her altogether. Being able to tap into the enemy's habits means you can make a game plan to shut them down. And let me tell you something that's really important for you to understand. It's so hard for someone to change their habits mid-game. If they have something that they have been doing for hundreds, 200s, 300 SR, and they keep on doing it, if you can tap into that and punish them, then all of a sudden the way that they know how to play the game is being messed with, and they can either adapt or get punished and die again and again, and you can capitalize on that. So learning this skill, learning how to analyze enemies, is something that you could do in each and every game, and it's a skill that you must learn how to do. Pro players do this even better, where they'll go up against an enemy over and over again. They'll say, hey, this McCree always flashes above my shield, so I'm gonna push up my shield so that he can't flash me. Or, hey, this Genji always reflects pre-fight because he thinks I'm gonna shoot him immediately. He doesn't save his reflect for after he goes in, so if I just bait it out, if I storm arrow early, or if I shoot next to him, he's gonna automatically use reflect, and then I'm not gonna take any damage, and then that's how I outplay him. Understanding how you can analyze these habits, adapting your own play so that you can take advantage of it, and then farming the enemy over and over again if they cannot adapt is so powerful, and it can get you tons of free wins. Anyways, let's move on to number 7, and this is how you outplay your opponents. You need to never fight fair. This is an echo of the point of hit them when they are weak, but never fighting fair goes even further than that. If you want to keep winning matchups and outplay your opponents over and over again, don't fight fair. Don't fight when the enemy knows you're there. Don't fight in a way that allows the enemy to hit a certain amount of shots in order to win the game. This means going at an enemy as Genji only when you have your reflect, your dash, and full health. This means setting up tons of 2v1 scenarios so that you never have to have a 1v1. This means getting the enemy by surprise. This means running away when you have a disadvantage, and that's so important. If you are in a fight, if you're in a matchup and you realize that the matchup is too close to 50-50 for your comfort, don't risk the 50-50 each and every time. Sometimes it's better to disengage and set up another scenario where you have an advantage. This is something that we can directly learn from pro players. There's a certain amount of confidence in themselves, but when the matchup isn't advantage, when the matchup is apparently lost, they disengage, they try to find an opportunity to set up that matchup again to where they have an advantage, and then they retake the matchup. And I'm sure you've heard this concept in all those videos you see on YouTube that I've recommended to you about street fighting. Don't fight fair, you know? If you ever get in a fight in the street, you're not trying to fight in a dojo where everything's scored by points, Olympic style. You're using every means necessary to win the fight. It doesn't matter if it's 2v1, a 4v1, it doesn't matter if they're running away. There's no such thing as fighting fair, so never fight fair, and do anything you can to give yourself the leg up on the competition before the fight even starts. Now, let's move on to 8, and this is our final way to outplay opponents over and over again, getting that sweet SR and those sweet rank ups, because that's what Overwatch is at its core. It's an outplay machine. If you can outplay your opponents over and over again, that means you deserve to be against better opponents, because that's just the way it goes. You're going to rank up because the opponents at your rank are not good enough to keep you in check. So what you need to do is practice every matchup. And I know that this is a hard one to get down, but what you need to have in your mind is a game plan for every single matchup. Whether you're up against a tank as a tank, or a DPS as a tank, or a tank as a support, what you need to do is you need to have a game plan. What is that character going to be trying to do that's proactively powerful, and what is your game plan against it? Maybe you know that a monkey wants to jump on you, so you want to sleep dart them. However, good monkeys will bubble midair so that your sleep dart will hit their shield, and then you're just gonna die to that monkey because there's nothing you could do. Understanding how to play around the good playstyle of enemies. What is your game plan? What are good monkeys gonna do versus how is a monkey gonna misplay and how can you capitalize on that? These are questions that you need to ask yourself, and these are things you need to be thinking about. If you have a little mental book of how to play each and every matchup, what can they do that's really powerful, and then trying to capitalize on what they do wrong, that is how you win more matchups. That's how you outplay your enemies, and that is how you master this concept. Now, in order to learn all these things extremely quickly, the only place that you can go to is GameLeap.com. We have in-depth matchup guides over every character, including in-depth VOD reviews that will put you in the mindset of a Grandmaster player so that you could start outplaying enemies just like them. You don't even have to take my word for it. GameLeap.com offers a 10-day money-back guarantee, so come check us out risk-free in the links here. Anyways, I hope this guide has been extremely helpful for you. Any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I know that outplaying opponents is something that people keep asking me. How do I outplay this person? How do I outplay this person? This will definitely get you on the right track to start outplaying opponents. If you have any other video concepts that you want to see, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to make them. That's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.